Hi there! Today we'll be painting this fried egg. I really enjoy egg on a Sunday morning, so let's dive right in. I always like to start off my painting knowing that I don't need to worry too much about colors. So what I do to begin is start with some color mixing. Just some basic tones. So here I'm making some variations for the egg yolk and later on also for the egg white. That gives me enough to get started. Now let's start with those darks on the yolk first. I'm using a very soft brush here actually, but no mediums. I like to keep it simple. Sometimes I use medium or oils when I'm painting bigger pieces. I have really a lot of ground to cover, but with this small canvas that's not really the case. And the oil paint I use is by the brand Cobra. It's a water-soluble oil paint. So for thinning it down or for even cleaning your brushes, all you need is water. No turpentines or anything like that. So it's very easy to work with. Now I do see that the part here, it's a slightly greenish tone. So let's see if we can achieve that also with that Caribbean blue or any other blue you might use to create a bit of variations in tone. So see some yellower areas. And that I'm gonna scumble in again. Here you have a bit of a darker rim. Then you can really see the depth in the egg. And you can really see that this is still like this gooey liquid part. Lighten it just a little bit. I think it's nice to use the same blue as what we'll be using in the background, because that will give it some harmony overall. So there's just a little bit of paint on that brush and I'm rubbing it out a lot. So I'm basically creating a very thin layer of paint. See if we can just add some of these even darker shadow areas there. Again, still just blocking in. In the early stages of my painting, I always like to already cover quite some ground to get an overall feeling, overall direction to where I want to head. I'm gonna take some of that sienna together with this umber to create a bit of a dark color, which I'm gonna scumble upon here. Those will be a bit those crispy patches. This mixture of burnt sienna and raw umber, it really can get very dark. But I'm just using a little bit on my brush there and I'm rubbing it out. But if I would apply it more thick, you get a very dark, near black color. So keep that one in mind. Still not a pure white though. Tend to keep those until very far in the process. And I'm still using just that little bit of paint on my brush. And as mentioned, this is not a pure white, it's more of a cream color, kind of in between. Always try to keep those brightest whites for the final highlights you put on your piece. And honestly, that's also the moment that your work really starts coming together. Those finishing touches, putting on those final highlights. That's something I always really enjoy. But be careful not to overdo it, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. For now, I invite you to look closely at that bottom part of that egg yolk. You really clearly see that it's a liquid area still. That comes because of the yellows in there. To a smaller brush. Adding some more yellows. On the side where the light hits. the yolk. Enhancing the shadow a bit. Because we want some more drama in there. People like drama. More orange by adding some of that red. You see how I started with with some basic mixtures, and I'm just expanding on those on the go. Can easily tweak. That's the beauty of oil paints. I'm slowly building up the whites. And now I'm rubbing it out less than before. Still not a pure white. Leaving the pure whites for the highlights. I'm gonna load my brush a bit more. Rub it out less. As you go and work your way around this egg, try to keep it as soft as possible most of the times. There's not really any hard edges there, well, around the yolk maybe, and the crispy parts, but other than that, it's quite gradual and soft. Keep that in mind. It's time to start working on some of those highlights I mentioned before. You have this little wet rim indicating the yolk touching the liquid gooey part. So we're putting in a little line there. And again, it's not a pure white. It's slightly toned down and very thin, because we don't want a focus point on there. Again, here the trick is not to work with sharp edges, or to keep it open. Also see there a bit of a darker edge. And then I'm gonna soften that again. So I don't have any paint on my brush now. Just softening and letting it blend. Might have some here too. Which I feel really adds to the realism. These small things like bubbles. Trying to make a nice circle here. Always a difficult shape, to be honest. Another bubble. And a third. You know, before I started painting eggs, I never realized that there were these little bubbles on the yolk. But basically, the yolk is boiling and the bubbles of air cannot escape, so you get these little bubbles in there. And now it's time to really start working with the brightest areas on the egg. This also states where you can nicely put some dominant brush strokes in there. Let people know they're looking at a painting, especially when they step in closer. Remember I told you about creating that near black? Well, here we're just doing that. Just putting down that same mixture of raw umber and burnt sienna, but then a bit more thicker, and you see how much darker that already looks. Let's start with adding some of that nice blue, Caribbean blue background. And this brush I'm only going to use for this color, because it's a quite strong color, as you can tell. But I do like that. It goes very nicely with that egg yolk. Okay, time to slow it down here and really take your time with those final highlights. You have here this shimmering edge that catches the light. It's a soft edge, so we don't make it too prominent, but make it smooth. Just notice with how little indications you can really add depth and three-dimensionality to this egg. Just by adding some whites in quite random shapes. I'm not doing this precisely as I see it on the picture. I'm doing this quite randomly and playful. Just have fun in that process. And if you find that you put somewhere too strong highlight, just rub it out a bit with that same brush. But then just ensure that there's no paint loaded on your brush when you start rubbing it out. And good to know, if you're looking for nice references of items to paint yourself also, be sure to head on over to my Instagram page, where I also host a weekly food paint challenge. There's a broadcast channel on my Instagram page where you can find many references for your free paint. And only by hop on working on a lot of different topics, you will get to get that vision, that clear view on color mixing, feeling, and getting a sense of which pigments work best for your style and for your topics. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below, as I'd be happy to answer them. And also, a like would be highly appreciated, and of course, don't forget to subscribe if you want to stay posted on the latest tutorials from my hand. Happy painting!